and then right, as she tried to work the kinks out of her neck. The back of that cop car had not been good to her. Sort of? You're gonna need to give me something better than that. Africa twisted around in her seat, giving Toni full access to her glare. I can't go to prison, Toni. I may act hard, but I ain't no criminal. I can't go down like this. The hysteria in Africa's whispers went up a notch at each statement, and Toni had to bite her lip to keep from laughing. Africa would definitely not see the humor. And with Toni's hair looking a shaggy mess, she couldn't afford to have her best friend and hairstylist not talking to her. Africa, we weren't caught doing anything wrong, Toni said, hoping her even tone would mellow her friend out. They have nothing to charge us with. All they can do is detain us for a couple hours. She left out the part about what could happen if they searched her and found the memory card in her bra. Africa narrowed her eyes at Toni. How long is a couple? Toni shrugged and glanced away. Maybe 4 or 5, or 72, she thought. A lot could happen in 4 or 5 hours, Africa murmured. Toni saw her friend glance out the corner of her eye at the thick, red-skinned woman who had taken up the entire bench across from them with her size 10 frame and size 20 attitude. The bottle blonde had skewered them with her bloodshot eyes when they first came in, before going back to the production of picking her nails, which were so long they seemed like weapons themselves. A darker-skinned woman of indeterminable everything lay buried in multiple layers of clothing on the only other bench, snoring. Don't worry. It's usually pretty quiet this time of night, Toni said, leaning her head back against the wall. Africa scowled, but didn't say another word. Toni knew her friend was still mad, but she was glad that Africa had calmed down. It would be a long 12 minutes if she had to sit there and listen to her whine. Well, well, looks like it's ladies' night up in here. Mikey? Africa had a puzzled expression on her face. What you doing here? Hey, cuz. Mikey chuckled and unlocked the door to the holding cell. I work here. What you doing here? Keeping bad company, Africa said, throwing a nasty look Toni's way. Toni, Mikey said. Her name on his lips sounded as oily as the chicken grease that had stained his uniform. There was no doubt he'd had a 3-piece for dinner. Toni forced a smile even though she really wanted to gag. If he was any other cop on any other day, Toni would have given him a piece of her mind for the way his eyes were roaming all over her. But she needed this good times reject, and he knew it. She got up off the uneven bench and followed Africa out of the cell, feeling the heat of Mikey's gaze on her behind. She scowled. She was used to guys raking their eyes over her 5'4" frame, particularly her generous behind, but it still disgusted her. So, it says here that you aren't being charged, but you need to be searched, Mikey said, a toothpick in the corner of his mouth as he flipped through Africa's and Toni's files. Don't even think of putting your nasty hands on me, Africa warned. Easy, cuz, Mikey laughed. The search would have to be done by another woman. He turned his eyes on Toni. Unless you want to waive that right. Toni fought her gag reflex again. Thanks, Mikey. But you can already see we don't have any weapons. Plus, like you said, there are no charges. You're gonna let us out in a couple hours anyway. Why not save yourself some time? Mikey raised an eyebrow, and Toni sugared up her statement with a smile. He laughed again. She wasn't sure if that was good or bad. I guess you have a point there, he said a moment later, stepping forward and removing the cuffs from Africa's wrists. It's about time, Africa scowled. Where's my stuff? Mikey pulled a small plastic tray of items from behind the station desk and slid it over to Africa. Toni held up her wrists toward him expectantly. He glanced at her hands, but didn't reach for the keys. You've been in here an awful lot lately. Maybe you need to sit in a cell for a couple hours and cool off. Toni scowled. Or maybe you could help me change my